My name is Bridget and I produce The Imperfects. I grew up in Australia, but my ancestors arrived by boat in search of gold during the 1800s. What I've come to realise is that they arrived on land that had been cared for by the Indigenous peoples of this continent for millennia. It was and always will be Aboriginal land. We at The Imperfects would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the lands on which this podcast was recorded, and we extend our respects to their elders past and present. At The Imperfects, my job is to create a space for important stories to be heard. And in doing so, I pay homage to a rich history of storytelling cultivated by the world's oldest living culture.
Before we start today's episode, just a quick content warning. Today's episode contains frequent references to suicide. If this topic sounds like it's a bit much for you at this point, we recommend skipping today's episode and coming back to it at another time. The views and perspectives expressed by today's guests come from their personal experience with suicide. If you or someone you know is struggling, please call Lifeline on 131114.
The Imperfects invites you into a very safe place. A place where we share without judgment and drink heaps and heaps of vulnerability. Grab yourself a cup. This is the Vulnerabilitea House.
Well, welcome back to the Tea House, Hugh, Josh. This is a very, very momentous episode. I think one of the things I'm very excited about is, like, I grew up in Melbourne and grew up kind of near, for those who know Melbourne, near St Kilda. And I used to walk down the back streets of St Kilda, and I'd often walk past the house that was the Secret Life of Us apartment, and I was just like, oh, and this was before, I was a teenager or whatever, and so it was before I was in television. So television seemed so magical. I mean, it is so magical, but it seemed so like this other world. And I'd walk past the Secret Life of Us house. And whenever I would, I'd sort of hear the voice of the narration of that show in my head. It's like, and I would just imagine, like, as I walked down Ackland Street. And today we have the voice from that show and many, many other things as well. Samuel Johnson is in the tea house today. Hi, Sam.
Hi, and I'm so glad to be here, and I really needed this cup of tea.
Oh,
I've had a fairly stressful morning, and it was really helpful to know that I could come here and have a cup of tea with you guys.
Oh, that's
and just
lovely.
settle down and have a real chat.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Do you prefer Samuel or Sam?
I tend to get called Sam in my personal life.
Yep. Okay.
The reason I call myself Samuel Johnson is it goes back a couple of decades. So if my stage name was different to how I was called, if on the street people would yell out Samuel, I'd know that I didn't know them.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd pretend to be deaf. I just didn't hear that.
Yes.
But
you are a bit deaf, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you didn't pretend.
It's kind of selective hearing, I think.
Right.
I've got bung ears as well.
Okay.
So that's where the Samuel thing came from, because I had a very tempestuous relationship with my public profile when I was younger.
Yeah, okay.
I have a really good relationship with it now. But the Samuel thing comes from that. It also comes from the fact that the guy that wrote the first dictionary is called Samuel Johnson.
Oh,
wow. And I was raised by a novelist and, for a brief time, a poet in a house without any television, by very intellectual, kind of smart parents who really valued reading. So being called Samuel Johnson, my dad allowed me to believe that I was named after the guy that wrote the first dictionary. But in fact, he named the girls Hildegard and Constance, and my mum named the boys, and she called me Samuel Joseph, son of God, because she was very religious.
Right,
no pressure.
Yeah. So right. So as much as I want to be the dictionary guy, I'm actually the son of God.
Letdown.
Yeah, I know. So disappointing.
I think both are great.
It's a strong name, though, Samuel. Like Samuel's a very like. I'm tempted to change my name to Ryannual, but I don't know if that is a name. So I'll sleep on it. Probably won't lock it in now.
Well, it's sort of my job to do the introductions on this podcast, and I was thinking about it. I was watching. I went down a Michael Jordan rabbit hole on YouTube, and I saw an interview with him, and the interviewer did a really big intro on him, and I was like, mate, he doesn't need one. We know who this person is. You don't need to do this. And I kind of felt a little bit the same with you. You don't really need an introduction. Everyone, I was going to say, let's just let him talk and everyone will know. Let's never say who it is.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not say his name.
It'll be clear.
It's the most recognisable voice in the country. You are a national treasure. You are much loved. You have an incredible CV. I think for me, I think all of us, Secret Life of Us was so huge in our lives. But then to go on and do what you've done, to use your profile. I mean, $16 million you've raised with your charity, Love Your Sister. You're a Victorian of the Year in 2018. It's such a beautiful story. You must feel. I mean, we'll get into your question soon, but
so the new book that you've put out, Dear Lover, which is these incredible letters.
I wanted to say thank you also for writing your letter previously on one of our old books.
I wrote a letter in the Dear Dad Dad book. But thank you. It was my pleasure. But this, I totally forgot that you got an Order of Australia medal, and like to see Samuel Johnson OAM.
That's someone who's named after a dictionary writer.
Samuel Johnson Ohm.
The answer that I give to that, yes, I feel fairly puffy about the Victorian of the Year thing. I was not expecting to hear my name. Magda Sabansky was in charge of the Yes campaign that year. It was a really important campaign. And I just never imagined I'd win, and I just always imagined that Magda would take it because it was the Yes campaign, for crying out loud. And then they called my name, so I'm a little puffy about that. I burst into tears, lost it completely. I'm really proud of it, and 16 million is great, but
It's pretty good.
But let me put it into context for a bit. And then maybe you'll know what I mean when I say I'm a minnow amongst giants.
yeah.
This is where you're about to say that you siphon a lot of it off the top.
I've been waiting for 10 years to have this moment.
What a reveal.
I know. So Moira Lai, she was in Canberra. She had 5 kids, one of them with Down syndrome. She'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer. She raised $20 million in 12 months before she died.
Gosh.
Wow.
Jeff Coombs co-founded Tour de Cure and has just stepped back, and I think he and they have been responsible for putting about 75 million into cancer research. Am I starting to?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's people that have pulled some really, really good moves around me, and I'm very impressed with all of them. And I'm not being down on myself. I'm really proud of Love Your Sister. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Really proud of it. But
Yeah. But how many of them have ridden around Australia on a unicycle, I wonder?
Not many.
Well,
no one as long as you have.
When you spend 364 days on a one-wheeler, are you unicycling for cancer research? Are you just being a compliant brother because it was your sister's dying wish, or
the unicycle was,
or are you running away from yourself?
Oh. Well, that could be a good time to get into the cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be a good little segue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Depending on which question you choose. But that's I reckon you do it for your sister.
I am, but there's also other things motivating me.
Yeah.
It's not just my sister.
I feel like we need to turn this into a 10-part series.
Yeah.
We've got to get going. We're running late.
So on the top of these cards, the top of the bluey cards, there are...
That's where I get 3, right?
Yeah, there are 3 questions. You can choose one out of the 3 questions to answer. And the idea being that vulnerability really... I mean, I don't have to tell you this, but it really drives, authentic connection. And that's what we need so much. And The other thing about love that vulnerability is I think it really, when you are vulnerable, it sends a sign to the community that I can't do this by myself, and I think that's a lovely message to send, which is why we do the Vulnerability House.
Before we start the game, can I tell you a quick yarn?
Of course.
Yes, please.
So I do these mental health keynotes. So that's how I make my living. I'm a volunteer at Love Your Sister, but I do these keynotes, and corporates will pay to come hear me speak. And some of my work, a lot of it's about cancer, but some of my work is about mental health. Now, I went and shared some stuff at that event, and I was leaving, and a guy tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and he would have been about 60, a man of few words, very shy, a man of few words, rural, kind of, maybe he was a farmer. And
A cobra?
No, because he was at a conference.
That's an implied a cobra.
Yeah, right. Let's put an Cobra on him.
I feel like the TV version is wearing a cobra.
And he said, I want to talk to you. And I said, no worries, what's up? And he said, when I was 16, my dad was struggling, and he attempted suicide a number of times. And he came to me when I was 16 and told me he was going to do it again. And I told him to go and fucking do it then. And he went and did it. And the last thing I said to him was, fuck off and do it then. I just wanted you to know, he said, that I've never told anyone that. And
Jeez.
I wanted you to know that I'm going home to tell my wife now.
Wow.
Gosh.
And so he was about 60, and that had happened to him when he was 15.
Unbelievable.
So when you talk to me about the importance of vulnerability, I think of that man
Amazing.
who for 50 years held on to that. For 50 years, and didn't know that he can come and have a cup of tea and talk about it with friends. And so I wanted to, obviously we've got to get on with the game. I've got to pick 3 cards, but I wanted to just, you mentioned vulnerability. I just wanted to mention him to say, I think I know what you mean when it comes to that, the importance of vulnerability, because there's still people in our society that are tight-lipped.
Yeah.
And it's very important to think of those people that might be falling through the cracks around us, because they might seem happy.
Thank you for sharing that story. Sam.
story.
Yeah, amazing.
So I picked 3, right?
Yeah.
Three from the top.
Okay, and
Read
I
them out.
choose one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can read them out to us, and you can
Okay.
choose the one you. Can you read the handwriting?
Barely.
Do you want me to read?
What's that called?
Oh, unachievable, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is something that seems unachievable to you?
That's the first one.
Oh, yeah, good one. I knew that you guys would tickle me.
Well, that's the final segment. Just to lighten the mood a bit.
What childhood challenges best prepared you for adulthood? Ooh. There's some obvious answers there, actually. Like some stuff that I automatically thought about. Like I didn't wonder, what's, like it was
It just
more,
comes quick,
the
yeah.
answer was more specific to that one. And what has it taken you too long to realise? Oh, just about everything. Put that one away. That one can go. It's down to these 2.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Like it's like I come from dysfunction and drug abuse and criminal records and like it took me too long to realise everything.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm a classic late bloomer, mate. All right, let's go there.
So what have you chosen?
What childhood challenges best prepared you for adulthood?
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
And I do sort of know parts of your story, and so I just feel like I wonder what part you're going to choose here, because I know you've
Me
been
too.
through a bit.
Me too.
You've been through a bit.
Far out. Okay.
It's also we should say you don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Should never be
No, I'm just wondering.
pressured or anything like
no,
that.
I'm just wondering what, because childhood is big for everyone, and there are so many parts of it. So I'm just sifting through it, trying to work
course,
out.
yeah.
I think that that even though my mum was a mystery, I think that she really well prepared me for adulthood. So my mum was a mystery. I grew up without one. So she died when I was 3, apparently. For quite a while, I thought I was 1. I didn't really know how old I was for quite a long time. I still don't know how old she was when she died. Still don't know what colour she wore her hair. Still don't know where she's buried. Have never visited her. She's a real mystery.
Wow.
Because I grew up and in a world where you don't ask. So I didn't ask Dad I asked him once and he got a bit misty-eyed. And I didn't want to upset my dad.
Sorry, you asked about her? Or
About her.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Because I knew she was dead and I knew she'd killed herself. And I knew that she was in and out of institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a very kind of fragmented idea of who she might be because I didn't ask Dad because he got upset when I asked him once. And I heard my mum was a poet. And my dad was a writer and my mum was a poet. And I heard that she was published. So I went on a journey to find her poetry.
Wow.
And when I was about 15, I found my mum in a book called Mother Unrooted. It was an anthology of Australian women's poems.
Wow.
Published in the 1970s. And it was in my dad's bookshop because he had 7 secondhand bookshops. So I used to check the poetry sections in all the other bookshops, but all of his as well. And
so you found the book in one of your dad's bookshops?
Yeah, I found the book in one of my dad's bookshops, and in it was 6 of her poems. One of them was softball match at the tech school. Susie babe, fungoid full, Anderson's dick, you can't find it, bull crap, shove your ass on the backstop, miss, we want to go home, take a walk, fuck you, murder you, take it easy.
Oh, so a Jane Austen type.
I was just like, all of a sudden I like poetry, this is rad.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Man, I couldn't believe it. A cool poet?
Yeah.
I really related to softball match at the tech school. And then I found her in a newspaper and she was playing pool in a men-only bar. And so Dad would stay at home and look after the kids and Mum would go out to men-only bars and win cash playing pool. So I knew she was a pool shark.
Yeah.
Because it was in this article that I found that said Dad's quite at home, quite happy staying at home with the babies. And it was a photo of Mum. A men-only bar playing pool, so I knew she was a pool shark.
Wow. And
I knew she was a rad poet.
Do you mind? So how did you know she was a poet? How did you find that out?
I knew some basic shit forever. I always knew that she'd killed herself. I always knew that she was a poet. I just don't remember when I knew that. But I don't remember not knowing it.
Sorry, just another question. Just as a kid, I'm fascinated to know what that does to you emotionally, like the knowledge that your mum had taken her own life. Is it a really jarring?
No. So it made me unique. It made me quite special on Mother's Day. People would pay attention. And I came from a single parent family, and all of the other people came from double parent families.
Yeah.
And so I had nothing to miss. I didn't remember her. It's not like I was like, oh no, Mum died. I don't even remember her.
Yeah.
There's only one photo that exists of us. She was just this mystery hero.
Wow.
It wasn't a bad thing. Wasn't a bad thing at all because my dad was great. My dad was great.
Yeah. And did your mum or does your mum have siblings that you knew or know?
No. No. She was an only child. So I grew up with this kind of mystery kind of mum, and then when I was about 20, I was living above one of my dad's secondhand bookshops, and my nephew was getting really depressed with his new family. So the stepdad wasn't doing anything wrong, but something wasn't right. That kid had gone quiet, and he'd been quite vivid. So being the precocious wanker that I was, I thought I could help at this stage. And so I told his mum and my dad, give him to me for a bit. I'll take him for a bit. I'll put a smile back on his dial, you know. So just give him to me during the week. He goes back there during the week on the weekends. Because we come from that kind of family where you put the people where they're best suited.
Yeah.
And like when Connie lost her shit, like we'd send her to Auntie Marg's for a couple of weeks. Like, you know, it's not, we come from a family where you did that.
Yeah.
And so when I was about 20, I grabbed my nephew from Monday to Friday for a couple
And sorry, how old was he?
For
How
a
old
couple
was
of
your
years. He
nephew at
was
the
like
time?
7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to teach him how to read because he had had a very disjointed upbringing and gone to a lot of schools and, you know, and didn't know how to read, and he was getting to the stage where you totally need to know how to read, especially if you're a Johnson, you know.
Well, with that mythical dictionary background.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so he was struggling with his creative writing homework one night. And my dad, I'd grown up with a dad that insisted that I write a story every day. I had to write an A4 page every day. That was his only rule. I didn't have a bedtime. I didn't have a curfew. I wasn't told to do stuff like, you know.
Is he creative?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
And like, so I wrote this story when I was a kid called The Old Man and the Watermelon, and it was about this guy that had had a car accident, so he didn't have a car. My dad had had a car accident, and he didn't have a car. And the old man had 2 kids, and I was living with my sister. My biggest sister had moved out by that stage. So it was a fairly autobiographical story. But it was a story about these kids that would go to the supermarket. They'd walk the 2 miles together and carry the shopping home once a week. And they found themselves overburdened this week. There was too much shopping and not enough hands. So the boy rather ingeniously said, I know, I'll stick the watermelon in my T-shirt. And so he stuck the watermelon in his T-shirt and gave himself a very big belly. And the family were able to carry their shopping home. Halfway home, a robber saw that they were laden with goods and got out of his car and said, you're shopping or you die, and went to stab the old man. And the boy, refusing to lose his father, leapt in between them, and the robber stabbed the little boy in the watermelon, in the belly. And watermelon juice oozed out, and the robber thought it was blood and that he'd killed a kid. And so he hightailed it, leaving us all with the shopping, high-fiving. So when my nephew was struggling with his creative writing homework, I was like, such was my hubris. I thought, oh, well, I'll find him something that I wrote when I was his age. And so I went to my dad's filing cabinet. I was living above the bookshop. My dad still had his filing cabinets there. He kept every story I'd ever written as a kid, hoping that one day I'd end up the next Proust.
When's that book coming out?
And I opened it up to find The Old Man and the Watermelon, and found it, and then went to walk away, and out of the corner of my eye I saw Meryl's poems. And that's my mum. That's my mum's name. Like I barely knew until I found her poetry. I didn't really know how to spell Meryl. Do you know what I mean? Like even the spelling was kind of foreign to me. I was like, fuck. That's mum's poetry.
And how old are you at this point?
About 20.
20, wow.
And then I opened it up and there were like 200, 250 handwritten poems.
Oh,
in there.
my God.
And I was like, righto. So I put the kid to bed, read him The Old Man and the Watermelon, did the things, got the kid to bed.
Did he like
it? The Old Man and the Watermelon. It doesn't matter. I liked it. I thought I was great.
I would have been desperately seeking praise.
But basically, I opened up and got to know my mum for the first time when I was 20. She wrote from mental homes on her birthday when Dad never turned up. You know, like there was sad stuff in there, funny stuff, joyful stuff, religious stuff, disjointed stuff, mad stuff, all the stuff. And then I got to the second last poem and looked at the top, and it was the only poem that had a heading. And in brackets it said, for Samuel Joseph. My name's Samuel Joseph. She'd written me a poem and I found it, and I was 20 years old and I was reading a poem that she'd written me 2 months before she killed herself.
Oh my God.
And the poem was quite complicated, but in the end it was really simple. In the end it said, all the seas of joy rise to sing for you, boy. Surge and swell and roar. all the seas of joy sound wonderfully near since you've been here. So I feel like who I am as an adult is very dependent on an absent mystery mum, and because you do a bit of digging and you find some articles and you find some poetry and you get to know her, and I wonder now how much of this is her. Because I had a long lost brother that I never knew about, and he flew over from America after Dad died, and he had never met my dad. He'd never spent time with my dad at all, and he was a spitting image to my dad. He spoke like my dad. He had mannerisms like my dad. It was like my dad had returned from the grave. He was alive again. I was looking at my brother. I'd never met him before. He was from New York. He was some photographer guy, and he was exactly like my dad, even though they'd never met. So I wonder how much of my mum is sitting here without me knowing. Because when I saw my brother be so much like my dad, he was spitting image to my dad, I was like, maybe the same is true for me and my mum. Maybe people who knew mum would look at me and go, God, they're like those two.
First of all, I'm a bit speechless, which is useless on a podcast. But could you say that at the end of that poem again? Is that all right? Could you say that?
All the seas of joy rise to sing for you, boy. Surge and swell and roar. All the seas of joy sound wonderfully near since you've been here.
It's so beautiful.
It's incredible.
Well, what did that do to you when you read that? Did you cry a lot?
I mean, I got everything I was looking for. You know, I was important to her. That was all I needed to know, is that I mattered. We've got to stop saying that people who commit suicide are making a weak decision or taking a shortcut or opting out, or they're in a lot of pain. They're in a lot of pain. I don't encourage it. I'm not supporting it. The answer to why did anyone opt out is the same every time. The pain. They were in too much pain.
Did you, when you, and obviously you don't have to answer this question, but did you, when you're talking about the way people talk about people who take their lives, are you referring to messages you got as you were growing up as a boy?
Throughout, yeah. Messages I've got and still get. You know, people who commit suicide aren't selfish. You know, it's not simple.
I'm just fascinated by these poems and what an incredible. I mean, the way you described it was so visceral. What a discovery! It's just I remember when I found my childhood report cards, and that was kind of interesting. But this is a whole other level, obviously. Did you learn other things about her? What did you learn?
Yeah,
about
I learned
her?
how vulnerable she was, and I learned that she cared about me. And that was the big lesson, because you just assume that that you don't really matter to those people if they've opted out. You just assume that I just assumed that I wasn't that close with her.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know whether I was breastfed or who looked after me in the early years or anything. So I don't know. I don't have much to go on.
That must have been such a, I don't know if relief is the right word, but such a moment of having all those questions answered with the one answer that you probably wanted more than anything, I'd assume.
My big question was, did Dad have something to do with this? Did he prompt her upset? That was my big concern. And when I read the poetry, absolutely love hurt, but nothing like I was fearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you talk to?
I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell Dad I'd found the poetry at all. So yeah, I didn't talk to him at all.
Do you think? Sorry, Hugh.
That's right.
Do you think he knew that the poems were there?
Don't know.
Because
He had a lot of filing cabinets with a lot of things in them.
Yeah, you sort of forget what's in there after years. Yeah.
And did you ever tell him that you found them?
Never. No. No, I had no need to.
And I know your dad passed away a little while ago.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a conversation with him about, as a grown-up, as an adult?
No.
You never talked about your mum to him?
No.
Because you thought it might be a bit too painful for him, or it wasn't in your...
When my girlfriend killed herself, after I broke up with her that night, I was the last to see her. It was very amicable. The last thing I did was kiss her on the forehead and say, I love you. We didn't fight or anything. So I thought that maybe that would be the time when I'd talk to Dad about Mum, maybe, because he'd been through a very similar thing. His partner had committed suicide. You know, maybe he had something to impart at that point. But what can you say? It was very silent.
How old were you when that happened with your girlfriend?
About 26.
Jeez.
I suppose. And so I thought that might be the time. We were sitting on a hill, and he didn't say anything.
Did you want him to?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that might be the time. But what do you say? There are no words, but that silence meant everything as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just being there with you. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's all he could
yeah.
do.
You were very close with him, weren't you? And
well, as kids, yes.
Yeah.
As adults, we didn't get along. I didn't really take the right path.
Okay.
He wasn't very proud of me.
Okay.
In the end. Yeah.
You were very fond of him, though, weren't you?
Oh yeah. He's a great dad. So growing up, but we didn't get along very well as adults.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, when you say I took the wrong path, he wanted you to write more, or he didn't agree with you acting, or
lifestyle choices?
Okay.
Definitely, he didn't think I could be a great writer if I smoked weed.
Okay.
And he raised me to love books, not television, and I ended up on television playing an actor rather than writing books.
From a house with no TV.
In a house with no TV. He
Yeah.
was very anti-TV. It was a narcotic for the masses, you know.
Right.
So we didn't have a great relationship with him as an adult.
What drew you to acting?
I thought it was an accident for years, but then in my diary when I was 11, I wrote, I've decided I'm going to be an actor, and if that fails, I'll be a writer instead. And
there you go.
I'm a writer now. And the acting kind of failed. And
I think failed is probably a bit harsh.
You're a gold Logie winner for your acting.
I know.
yeah, but the phone doesn't ring, trust me.
No, but it's I say fascinating. It's also very. It strikes me that you've been through a lot of trauma throughout. Even recently, you had a really nasty brain injury.
I was a pedestrian. There was a car. I got hit. Didn't go well at all. Nearly died. Tanked in emergency. My family were put in the death room.
Okay, so how long ago was this?
16 and a half months ago. So I nearly had one of those near-death things. And
You did have a near-death thing. Like
yeah. And when you come out of it, you've got PTA or post-traumatic amnesia. So I thought I had a heavy Russian accent for 3 days.
Did you?
Yeah, I was an 11-year-old Japanese girl for 2.5 days. I thought everyone there I was in a donut factory and they were all trying to turn me into a donut. Because the MRI machine is round, so brain injury patients commonly think that they're in a donut factory.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, it was. I went through this really loopy kind of, the nurses say, what happens in PTA stays in PTA. And there is a ward on a hospital that is a PTA ward, and you've got to have the lights down. You can't have sounds, lights. They're very super sensitive, and everything's, you're not allowed your phones because you commonly call the police to be rescued because you think you've been kidnapped. Real shit goes down. So I came out of that, and 11.
So how long were you?
That
in
was
that
11
for?
days.
Okay.
I don't remember 11 days.
Yeah.
But then, so I remember coming out of it, all that Russian stuff and stuff. I remember that.
You remember being the Russian and the Japanese girl.
And now I could reverse engineer it. For 6 months, I joked with a mate about a penis in a heavy Russian accent. And when I was 11, I went to the Asian Pacific Children's Peace Convention in Fukuoka, Japan. It made sense that I was an 11-year-old Japanese girl, totally, because I love Japan. So everything was, I could reverse engineer it all. But basically, I spent 12 months recovering, and I seem fine now. But when you see me do my exercises, you realise I'm not like I was.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Sam.
Did you remember the accident? Do you remember what happened?
No, not a bit.
Have you been told about what happened, or?
No, the advice is don't ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Hugh, don't
Sorry,
ask.
apologies.
No, well, I mean, I was peeing behind a tree, and I don't know whether it was a 2-lane slipway. I thought it was a 1-lane slipway. I didn't know that slipways had 2 lanes
right.
in them, and I heard that the other person was driving on the wrong side of the road. So it sounds like. It sounds like I fucked up, but it sounds like they fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know what happened, and nor am I obsessed with working it out. At the end of the day, I'm lucky that I got PTA because I'm not traumatized by it at all.
Yeah.
It's a bit like my mum. Like I'm not really bothered by that at all because I don't remember it. Like there's kind of traumatic things that have happened in my life that I have no memory of. So it's kind of convenient.
I think what you've just said negates exactly what I was going to ask, but I might ask it anyway. I have been very lucky to not really have to deal with too much trauma in my life. So I haven't had to analyse or think about how you respond to that and how you interact with trauma.
Sorry, Sam was just pouring water. It sounded like he was taking a week. He was doing a week.
Didn't like the question very much.
That was water pouring.
Water
Sorry.
in the...
Josh politely just let him go.
Yeah, I didn't want to. He's the guest. I'll let him do what he wants. Do you feel like you've got a sort of intimate relationship with trauma that other people don't have?
No, I don't. I don't think any of us are immune to it. I think it happens to all of us, and we all get blindsided on some idle Tuesday to the temple with some random shit that's just happened that you have no control over. And the one thing you can control is how you respond to it. Yeah. So you get put in the driver's seat straight away. All right, this has happened. Well, that's happened. Well, this has happened. And these are the bullets of life, you know. If you're lucky, you can dodge a few and live a while and bury a few people. If you're lucky. If you're really lucky. So I've pretty much, I can choose how I respond to all of this. So if my sister gets sick and I can help turn it into millions of dollars for cancer research, then I'm really happy with how I've controlled my reaction to that. So if my girlfriend kills herself, am I going to blame myself? I remember 2 days after she died specifically choosing not to blame myself. And making that conscious decision, right? You cannot. I mean, I'd gone into the mum's house, and I thought, it was a long drive. I call it the death drive, and her family were waiting, and I thought they'd all blame me, and I was driving up, and I pulled the car over, and little Erin, Lainey's little sister, ran to me. Her sister had just died. And she ran to me. She was about 6. And she ran to me with her arms open and said, "Sam, are you okay?" Her instinct as a little child who had just lost her sister was to find out whether I was okay. And I was like, right, that clicked me in. So I knelt down and I grabbed her by the shoulders and I said, "I need you to do something really important for me because I know that kids need a role to play during an uncertain time." And so I said, "I've got a really important job for you." She said, "Yep, anything." I said, "Look, I know you're the youngest, but it's still a really important job and it's one that I think you're old enough to do." So I built the gravitas, built the importance of it so that she knew what she could do at the moment. And she said, "Yes, I'll do anything." And I said, "Look after your mum, all right? You're going to all be feeling pain, all right? You're going to all be feeling pain, but you need to look after your mum." And she went, "Yep, I'll do that." And it gave her a role, and it was a really positive experience. And then I went into the house, and the curtains were drawn, and the house was dark, and I thought she'd blame me, and I went into the room, and she said, "I heard every word." Her window was open. Oh. She'd heard that exchange outside with her 6-year-old, and she said, "I'll never blame you." And I made the decision after that to never blame myself. And I'm really proud of how I responded to that. So basically, it's going to happen. to all of us. None of us are immune. The only thing you can control is the way you react to it. And at the end of the day, I sleep well at night knowing that that I've reacted pretty well to the traumas and curveballs on some idle Tuesday.
You've been throwing some serious curveballs. I mean,
And you will too.
yeah.
And they'll hit you too. They hit everyone. No one dodges them all. So I just kind of see myself as a bullet dodger. Just go like that, and the bullets go by me, and they kill someone.
So the Matrix made a lot of sense to you.
I don't
when you
know
watched
why I
that.
haven't died yet.
Yeah.
I should have died a few times.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, everyone died. Yeah, like me and my sister are left. Like, yeah, they all died. So I don't think, like, that's kind of normal, right? That's part of life. So if you're lucky, you know, like I got to see my parents through. That's the correct order. You don't want parents burying their kids. Oh, no, that's rubbish. So, you know, mum and dad died before me. And
Do you spend much time? And I don't know how I would respond in any of these sorts of situations, but I feel like I would be tempted to analyze, like, why, like with that, in that what you just said is that, like, you know, you're still here when you feel like you should have died a few times, and it's just you and your sister now. And I feel like if it were me, I would think, and I'm not a religious person, much more spiritual than religious, if anything, but I would probably start thinking, why? Why am I still here?
yeah, why didn't I get cancer? My sister had 2 kids. I've got no kids. Like, give me cancer. Why her? Like, there's a lot of dying. I don't really make sense of it. I don't know why I'm still here. Don't know, like, I'm 44 years old. How am I still here? Like I've outlasted everyone without meaning to. It's kind of bizarre. And I think that's where you end up in old age. You end up kind of, you feel like you've won the lottery. You know, you're like, wow, I'm still here. Like,
But I feel like I don't know, I don't know you well at all, but I feel like the reason why maybe to pluck a reason out as to why is that you're so incredibly talented at telling stories, and this is it's such an important story. And for you to be here to be able to, whether it be on our podcast or wherever you tell it so many times, so many places, it'd be so helpful, empowering to so many people. And I think, like, what a special role that you're playing now to be able to tell the story and to help in all the ways that you're helping.
yeah, that sounds amazing. Like, I don't see myself that way, but if it's having that effect, then great.
I think it's huge.
Late last year, I was at the Queen Victoria Market with my kids. I take them there to get jam donuts sometimes with Josh. And
I
his
was
kids.
doing a fundraiser there with the donut people.
Yeah, I was in. It's a long queue, as you probably know.
Did you did you relate to the donuts? Like, when you saw the donuts, were you like, oh, I was one of them once? You knew where they came from.
I was in the queue and I saw you had a little, like, a sort of a trailer that you'd opened up, and you were doing exactly what Ryan just said. You had a crowd of about probably 40 or 50 people around you, and there seemed to be no real structure to what you're doing. You're just telling stories, and the crowd was growing and growing, and it's a long queue for these donuts. And so I was there. I saw it all take place, and then I saw people leaving when you were finished. And the look on their faces, it was just the interaction I'd had with you. I mean, they were probably 7 or 8 rows deep in the little crowd that had formed around you, but you'd had such a huge impact on them, and they were emotional, they were hugging, they were smiling, and they were, I just think just you know what Ryan said, and what you've done for us here, you just share so selflessly share your journey and your stories, and they're beautiful, and you tell them so well. And I just remember watching. I do a lot of public speaking, and I was watching the people walking off, going, God, I wish people did that when they finished seeing me speak. It was really special. You have such an incredible gift, and I feel so unbelievably privileged to have sat down with you to hear your life, and I can't wait to listen back to this because I think there's so much beautiful stuff in here.
Oh, yeah. To meet the man who wrote the dictionary is the true thrill.
It's pretty cool.
Doesn't get much bigger.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been really, really joyous. I know I'm an earnest fucker, and I know that like it's a bit heavy, but like to me it's not. Like
it's your life.
Like,
yeah,
there are plenty of people out there that would have pressed stop a long time ago, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me and for being a part of this.
No, thank you so much, Sam. Honestly, I mean, I cannot wait to read this Dear Lover book.
Yeah,
I love these books, and I hope everyone has a read of it.
Loveyoursister.org. Click on market.
Oh, yeah.
Great, beautiful.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Cheers.
The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin.